Hello and welcome to Asia News Today. 17 million people go into lockdown in China. There's been another big earthquake in Indonesia and fears in South Korea for another ballistic missile test from North Korea, perhaps as soon as today. All that and a whole lot more in today's Asia News Today. Families of Japanese citizens abducted by North Korea are calling on an early meeting of leaders from the two countries to retrieve their relatives. Now, they're pushing on the Japanese government to approach North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to swiftly resolve the issue of the abductions. And this comes from the Association of Families of Victims Kidnapped by North Korea. The association's also calling on cooperation from the US to help coordinate the meeting. Yokota, the brother of Japanese abductee Megumi, says that Japanese PM Fumio Kishida should strongly send a message that if the issues are resolved, both Japan and North Korea will be able to paint a brighter future. Very diplomatic indeed. A strong and shallow underwater earthquake has shaken the western regions of Indonesia this morning, but no serious damage has been reported so far and no tsunami warnings were issued. The magnitude 6.6 quake was centred at a depth of 16 kilometres, about 170 kilometres west of Pariaman, a central town in West Sumatra province facing the Indian Ocean. The quake was felt in many parts of the immediate area, but authorities say there was no danger of a tsunami. Indonesia is frequently hit by earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. A 6.2 earthquake hit West Sumatra last month, killing at least 16 people and injuring more than 400. Flights between Bali and Australia are back after a 2-year break as the first plane load of Australians headed to Indonesia today. The first Jetstar flight, that's the budget offshoot from Qantas, headed to Bali from Melbourne's Tullamarine Airport with more than 300 passengers. This is the first time Australians have flown to Bali since Australian Airlines were grounded back in March 2020 as an initial COVID precaution. The recommencement of flights from Australia to Bali follows the Indonesian government relaxing quarantine rules for visitors arriving from approved countries, which includes Australia. The rule change means tourists from the 23 approved countries only need to pay the equivalent of $47 for their visa rather than an earlier $300. Passengers can pay for their visa at the airport but still have to go a PCR test when they arrive in Bali. And now for the fine print, travellers will still have to take out insurance that would cover them for up to $100,000 if they catch the virus and require hospitalisation or treatment. Tourism accounts for a massive 52% of Bali's GDP. South Korea believes that North Korea might be ready to test an intercontinental ballistic missile as soon as today. This has come from a source in the South Korean presidential office. Pyongyang appears to be following through on its own threats to restart testing ICBMs, breaking a self-imposed moratorium nearly 5 years ago. Outgoing President Moon Jae-in's office has briefed the new president-elect that a test launch is imminent and even as soon as today. The comment was made as President Moon's national security advisor briefed President-elect Yoon about various foreign policy and security issues over the weekend. In a rare joint announcement, both the US and South Korea announced last Friday that the North used its largest ever ballistic missiles in the last 2 launches, whilst North Korea insisted the launches were part of a satellite launch preparation. The new President Yoon, elected just last Thursday, has signalled a tougher line against Pyongyang. He even went as far to say that preemptive strikes might be needed to counter an imminent North Korean missile attack during the campaign leading up to last week's vote. He's since declined to repeat those threats since being elected.
You love the Thaiger. Now subscribe to our new YouTube lifestyle channel, Bounce.
Thailand's food, travel, challenges, and just about anything that isn't news. Only on Bounce. Link in the description below.
China has placed about 17 million residents under lockdown again as COVID infections doubled across the country to nearly 3,400, and officials worry about the resilience of China's zero COVID strategy in the face of the worst outbreak in 2 years. The sprawling southern special economic zone of Shenzhen, which sits directly to the north of Hong Kong, is home to about 13 million people. All residents are now being told to remain at home as officials struggle to eradicate the Omicron-fueled flare-up, which has been linked to the virus-ravaged city of Hong Kong to the south. The lockdown's been matched by a suspension of public transport and will last until at least March the 20th. The nationwide surge has also closed schools in Shanghai, China's largest city. There's also been lockdowns in China's northeastern cities as almost 18 provinces battle clusters of Omicron and Delta variants of the coronavirus. China, where the virus was first detected in December 2019, has maintained a strict zero-COVID policy enforced by strict and draconian lockdowns, travel restrictions and mass testing to battle any outbreaks. Malaysian PM Ismail Sabri's Malay Party has defeated coalition partners and the opposition parties to score a landslide victory in a second Malaysian state election that could be an indicator for an early national poll. Saturday's election and win in the southern Johor state by the United Malays National Organisation, better known as UMNO, reflects wins in other state elections held last November. Although the next general election isn't due until July 2023, the two big wins will embolden members of UMNO to push for an early poll. The UMNO-led National Front coalition oversaw growth in Malaysia for 61 years until its landslide defeat in 2018 due to the multi-billion-dollar 1MDB financial scandal. But the coalition that won the 2018 poll collapsed 2 years later due to defections. UMNO and the National Front then made a comeback. Political pundits say that both a low voter turnout and a highly divided opposition secured UMNO's wins. There's been several changes to Singapore's vaccinated travel pass and the vaccinated travel lanes for arriving after March 15. Well, that's tomorrow. This direct from their website. Travellers entering Singapore from March 15 will only need to undergo an unsupervised, self-administered rapid antigen test using self-procured, authorised ART kits within 24 hours of arrival in Singapore. This will replace the previous requirement for a supervised, self-administered ART. Travellers are required to report their test results via the website sync.gov.sg before proceeding with their activities in Singapore. Visitors no longer need to visit these testing centres and do supervised tests. Instead, you can now do it at your leisure at a hotel and report the results. Singapore also clarified the countries at which the eligible travellers must have been in the preceding 7 days to be allowed to enter. You need to check if you're from one of those countries if you're heading to Singapore. I'm sure you will. Meanwhile, the total number of daily COVID infections has dipped below the 10,000 mark in Singapore for the first time since February the 14th, with 9,701 infections reported yesterday. It peaked with over 22,000 infections on February the 22nd. Well, that's all the main stories from around Asia over the past 24 hours. Lots happening, and two big stories today. One out of the UK with the Lancet reporting figures from the Washington State University that shows the number of deaths during COVID, like the last 2 years, have been vastly underreported. That's an important story, and we've got that at the Thaiger.com. along with another story about the problems in Hong Kong with COVID and the emergence of perhaps a new variant of Omicron. Both those stories at thetiger.com. But from all of us here at Asia News Today, we'll come back with another bulletin tomorrow.